Okay, so on this prep, this is a bullet. One thing you want to walk around and check are decals. If you look at the decal on the nose of this trailer, it's all peeling and flaking around the edges of all the letters. So you'll want to walk around the trailer, check out every decal, make sure there's no peeling or flaking. So another problem, which can't really be seen too well with the camera, but the awning motor is shot, so that's another thing you'll check during the preps. This motor was totally shot, wouldn't go in and out, so right now we have it apart because we had to manually unroll it, so that's another thing to watch out for. Here's one example of the sealant gaps that you always have to check everywhere on the trailer. This is a good example on the corner molding where the sealant's peeling away. That'll definitely turn into a water leak. So there's one example of a sealant gap. Then you also want to check all the corner moldings and the trim here along the bottom, and then all the compartments and pretty much anything that might have sealant on it. But there's one example of good sealant gap. Okay, so on the roof you want to check for any lap seal gaps. Radio antenna, there's I've actually already done it. There's some sealant gaps, lap seal gaps around the antenna. Then around all the stink pipes over here you had screw holes showing. So I did over the tops of all the screw holes, and then the antenna, the screw holes were showing on the antenna, so I covered all those up with lap seal. And then along the front of the nose over here, there was a bunch of gaps there, so I covered up some screw hole gaps where you could see the top of the screws poking through the lap seal. So you just want to put a nice little bead on it, let it level out and look all appropriate. So another thing you want to look out for is a safety pin on the fire extinguisher has snapped off. It's not usable again, so we're going to end up having to replace this because anybody could push it and it's going to go off. So this does happen every now and then, so checking these is definitely important. So another thing, when they're hanging blinds, they must have put too much tension on the strings on each side. So now you got a big arc going on right here. So that's just cosmetic for the customer. We try to loosen them up, try to get all that angled bent out of there so it's hung straight. And that does happen often. So in this unit, this cabinet obviously doesn't latch properly. One finger pops right open. This one you can tug on good. That's the way it should be. Bump it with one finger and it pops open. Definitely have to do some tweaking on the catches and the latch to make it secure. So in this unit I found the fascia piece coming right off the side of the slide. You will run into this from time to time. But this one's popped right off or over halfway up, so you're gonna have to nail that back or keep it on there somehow. So that's another thing to watch out for. So for example, on these cabinets, they were hung so tight that now that they're open, they won't shut. So you might have to take one door, slide it right over, move the hinges over, because there's no way that door will even shut now that it's open. So some issues on some doors, this doorknob, turn it and it sticks shut, the plunger doesn't come back out, so it's another thing to watch out for. So another thing to watch out for is these plastic L mounts for the bottoms of the curtains. This one was snapped right off, so this will have to be replaced. And this does happen often in a lot of them. They're just little plastic clips, so they'll be broken often. Another thing for windows, this window has runs in the screen and it's starting to tear. So you'll definitely want to check all your screens and all your windows and replace anything that looks like that with runs and tears in them. Also, with checking out windows, this knob stripped right out, so even though it's screwed in there tight, the threads are gone, so it's not going to open your window. It shuts it a little bit and then strips out and starts to open it and stripped out, and that's a very common thing with these bullet windows. Okay, so as far as trim inside the trailer, I already started doing some repairs, but these kind of outside corner moldings tend to pop off a lot. This whole side was coming off the wall, so I nailed this side back on. Other examples are both the trims going up the sides of the doors. These things are always popping off. I actually put this one back together, so I can't really show you, but this was popped off for like 1.5 feet on both sides. One other example is a batten strip on the ceiling. This is popping off. I haven't repaired this one yet, but you'll get a lot of them where they're starting to fall off. So the batten strips and the trim around the doors and those outside corner moldings tend to be loose all the time. So on the slide outs, one thing you want to check, these rubber pads that go around the cable, that one's totally off and just kind of stuck to the side of the trailer from the sealant that holds it in place. And then this lower one right here is just about off, so you have to clean that off and stick those back on. But that's another common problem with these cable driven slides. Those will pull right off, so that's another thing you would definitely want to check for. So another thing I had with this trailer was I had no electric hot water. We determined that up here on top there was a bad crimp on the 12-volt power supply, which goes to the relay, so the relay wasn't shutting, and the 110 power wasn't getting to the element. So that's another common issue. So this issue right here, it's reading full now, but the lights were flickering off and on as it was filling when we were walking around the trailer, and it's pretty still now. So I'm assuming there's probably a ground wire issue underneath. But as it's filling, they were all flashing like Christmas lights and stuff. I can't really show you a good example now. It is reading full, but you'll have to watch that as it's filling up. It was not reading full. Unfortunately, it is right now, but that's another issue you'll want to watch out for, is make sure your gauges read right. And this one's reading right now, but it was having problems as it was filling. So I'm sure there's a ground wire issue or a loose wire on the tank in the underbelly.